I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we are talking to author Karen East about her book, Sanctuary, where she discusses a future where personal freedoms are tightly controlled by a powerful corporate government, and follows one woman's journey as she discovers a different way to live. With a background in marriage and family therapy, Karen draws on her experience working with American Indian tribes in the Midwest to create a compelling narrative that explores themes of individual freedom and the impact of technology on society. We are delighted to have Karen on the spotlight today. Thank the team at Mainspring Books for helping us put Karen in the spotlight today, and ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Karen, such a delight to be talking with you today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Glad to have you on the show. Loved your book, Sanctuary. I feel that a lot of its story kind of fits today's world with this greedy corporate structure that controls everything. Let's start out with the big picture. Tell the folks at home what your book is about.
Well, my book is about the manner in which technology and the big corporations have controlled us to a point where our environment is in danger, where we have a lot of pollution of lakes and rivers and the air. And it's about a group of people on the Lakudere Indian Reservation in Wisconsin who have chosen to go back to old ways in terms of their lifestyle. There is a discussion that goes on among many tribes, I would guess, about what traditionalism means. And for some, it means language. And for others, it means lifestyle. And for others, it means spirituality. And sometimes it means a combination of all those things. And so for a long time now, many Ojibwa people have been of the opinion that electricity is evil. Yeah. Electricity is evil. And when you think about all the things we do and the manner in which we take electricity for granted, that certainly makes sense. Although we don't think of it that way because it's convenient.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of today's society can be put to good or to bad. Look no further than the digital age. It could be a wonderful source of free speech. It could be a wonderful digital commons. Instead, it's a place where it seems that free speech is restricted and opposing viewpoints are squashed. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. Yes, I've been, I guess, aware of that for quite some time in terms of listening to talk shows, for example, and the manner in which people are put down. And I remember one time recently where, within the last few years, where a friend and I went up to Canada, which isn't that far from here. And we were sitting in a restaurant and we were listening to two men discuss politics. They discussed it, but they didn't, they weren't arguing. Mm-hmm. They were just discussing different points of view. And it seemed so different than what we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It feels like normal discourse today is outlawed, that only certain viewpoints are allowed. Other viewpoints are labeled as hate, which is obviously broadly defined. So there's a lot of personal freedoms that have been taken away from us at a time when we could have more personal freedoms than ever. So is this a little bit what inspired your book?
What inspired my book was when I was a child, my grandfather would talk about air pollution and water pollution, and he would talk about recycling. And this was in the 1950s. So people didn't talk about recycling then. So he made me very aware of the world around me. And I was, at the time I started writing it, which was a long time ago, I was living in a community where there were a lack of freedoms. I remember one time the governor at the time, not this governor, but the governor at the time came to town, and a woman challenged him in a meeting, and he told her to be quiet. So at that point, I decided I wanted to move back up north.
Yeah.
And I wanted to work for a tribe because I wanted to learn from them. And I certainly have learned from the tribes with whom I've worked. I've learned about different ways of looking at things and different ways of living.
And different ways of reconnecting with your environment, reconnecting with what's real, and reconnecting with what's important, I'd imagine, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. As a journalist, I got to tell you, I found your protagonist, Janet Ryan, intriguing because she's a journalist who writes stories that have been prepared for her by Homeland Security. What inspired you to make her a journalist? And do you believe the media could be controlled by corporations, or are they already controlled by corporations?
Okay. I made her a journalist because I wanted a character who would go to an Indian reservation and interview people. And I made her a journalist because I wanted to show that we don't have a lot of free-thinking journalism that exists in our country, and it hasn't for a long time. So, and I started the book before 9/11. I'm slow with a lot of things. And so when 9/11 came along and then Homeland Security came along, it was a good opportunity for me to include that in the story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also think it's interesting. So your writing process was from before 9/11 until the pandemic. When did you finish up the book?
I finished up the book. I finished up the book in 2019. I sent it to the publisher before that, a couple of years before that, but I didn't know how to write a novel. And it didn't read like a novel. So the editor helped me with some of that. But then I finally caught on. And I had to include a lot of dialogue in the book. Right. And I found that dialogue explains who a character is and what they're about. And I hadn't known that before. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's part of the process. You have an idea, you have a framework to work within, which is a novel, and then you write it. And then, of course, the art of the craft is rewriting. So that's what you had to do, some rewriting, and it was well worth it because what you wrote is very profound. And it also has some very realistic dialogue that brings the characters to life and the issues to life. Do you think we'd be better off as a society if we unplugged a bit, if we were less connected to our phones and to our computers and all of that?
Yes. One of the things that has been difficult, not for me, but for others who are dealing with me, is that I don't have internet at home. And people seem very surprised over that. I don't have a smartphone. I don't use my phone to play games or do anything like that. And I do think people are way, way, way too connected to all of these things.
Absolutely. It's nice to pick up the phone and actually talk to a person as opposed to text messaging them. It's nice to actually see a person rather than FaceTiming them. It's nice to actually see what their home looks like as opposed to seeing pictures on Facebook. I think this whole virtual world, I think people are going to do a 180-degree turn on it and go back to being a little bit analog and a little bit disconnected, and that disconnect actually will be a good thing. What say you, Karen?
Well, I don't know that. All I know is that I don't have internet at home and I don't have a smartphone.
Well, I think you're leading the way by being technologically challenged, as some might say. I'll say technologically advanced, because there's, too many people. Even I'm guilty of it. I talk to my best friend all the time via text. I rarely think of picking up the phone and talking to him, So there's a lot of disconnect. It keeps us together on one level. A lot of people have these computer mediated relationships nowadays, but on another level, it's keeping us at a quote unquote safe distance. So I think reconnecting with people in a person-to-person way would be a great thing.
Yes, I do too.
Yep. And I think that's where people will find their sanctuary, which is the name of Karen East's book. It is a wonderful book. It's a wonderful exploration of a society where corporate greed and corporate government has run amok and is controlling every aspect of people's lives. Karen, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.